I remember when I was 16 years old, I was at my sister's apartment. She was 6 years older than me. And I was having an argument with one of her friends. He was an older guy. He had been through Vietnam, and he deserved the right to express his opinion, and he deserved all the respect in the world and all that. And he was a great guy, a good friend, an amazing martial artist, and I truly had a tremendous amount of respect for him. But in this argument, he started to really demean and belittle me. And he started to repeat the words, young blood. You just don't get it because you're young blood. You don't understand, you're young blood. You don't have an opinion because you're young blood. And I sat there for a minute at that age, thinking to myself, what does my age have to do with my opinion or my emotions and my feelings? And it hit me. It hit me. It has everything to do with it. Everything. And this is why we're going to talk about the children of tomorrow. But before we can do that, we have to talk about the children of the past. And this is a very important message we're going to talk about today. The world that we are setting up for the children of tomorrow has two distinct paths in front of it. One is amazing and beautiful, and one is dark and bleak. Now, as I mentioned, we have to go back before we can go forward. When I was a kid, I was born in 1968. Vietnam War, all these crazy, crazy things were going on all over the world. Really, just if you research online, 1968, it was an insane era, and that year specifically was a very, very stressful year here in the United States. Things were going crazy. Now, what was happening here at home is you had what was referred to as hippies and peace love kids and things like that fighting for the rights of people on the planet as a whole. They were begging for us to stop going into foreign lands and killing and murdering, and they had ideas on how we can make the future better. But the older generation, the government, the people in charge, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they suppressed, put them down, beat, belittled, demeaned, locked up, outcasted all of these people. Now, this just did not happen in that era, in the 60s and the 70s. If you go back and look throughout histories in the 50s and the 40s, and even before that, there was always a rebellion of the youth. There has always been a rebellion of the youth. Why? Is it because the youth were just stupid and ignorant and really had no idea of who, what, where they were and what they were supposed to do? Or is it because the pride and the ego and the greed of the older generations just couldn't let go of their ways and let the new generation start to set up their new world? Which of the two do you think it was? Well, it's definitely a little bit of both. It really is. Of course, there comes that arrogance with the newer generation that thinks they know everything. And as I mentioned, the older generation just wants to hold on to their ways so bad that they'll do anything to keep life going that way. And it's happening right now in our own country. Now, even as I was a child growing up in the 70s and in the 80s, again, adults all around me would tell me I have no idea what I'm talking about. Just do what you're told, respect your elders, honor thy mother and father. Did you grow up in my house? Honor thy mother and father, respect your elders, do what you're told, go to school, listen to your teachers. Basically, shut yourself off from yourself. Never listen to yourself, don't trust yourself, even though they tell us to trust ourselves. And even though the younger generations, my younger generation, and me in particular, saw ways out of some of the problems that were going on within my home, saw ways out of problems that were going on in the school around me, saw problems that were going on with my friends. I saw the way out for them. I've always had this ability to understand and see past through issues. And it's not just me. This is the gift that the youth can bring to the world. We have children, but what we do is we take the world created in the Industrial Revolution and beyond that, We take the world that our great-grandparents and our grandparents and our parents were brought up in, and we hand that world to our children with force. We tell our kids, you can be anything you want to be within this box I give you. You can believe in whatever you want to believe in within this box I give you. We don't give them freedom. We shut their imagination off as quick as we can when we put them into school. We try to tell them what they need to learn, what they need to believe in, and how they need to love, what they need to think about for their future right now as children. We never let them grow up properly. Now today, right now, 2017, we refer to this new generation as millennials. Now, I cannot speak for other parents out there. There are great parents out there, and there are horrible parents out there. There are wonderful, amazing children out there, and there are bad children out there. And some of these children were raised and created that way, and some of these children were actually born bad. It's the truth. Darkness is all around us now that we are manifesting and creating it with our thoughts and our emotions, and we are handing this down to our children before they're even born now. If you're in bad health, chances are your child's born in bad health. If you're in good health, chances are your child's born in good health. Well, the same thing goes on for your celestial being inside you. If you are chaotic, confused, hurt, depressed, your child is going to have these hereditary memories, let's call them. So it's not bad enough that we do this to our children when we're conceiving them. We're not being conscious of what we're doing to ourselves, how we're seeing and viewing the world, and what we're doing during the moments of procreation. What energy are we putting out there when we're creating our children? But then when our children are born, we are absolutely misguiding them, letting them walk down the wrong road because we walk down that road. We have this misplaced pride and ego blocking us from accepting the light and love that we are and expressing that to their children and our children and all children, and letting them design and create their own future. Think about that. Think about that. We know right now, 2017, that if we do not change our ways today, again, not by 2030, Leonardo DiCaprio, today, that by 2050, there will not be a fish left in the ocean. Oh, you're crazy. Of course there will be. No, there will not be. And especially with what is going on in the United States government right now as far as shutting down the EPA and not giving a crap about the environment anymore and just being delusional and thinking God is just going to fix it. Yeah, maybe by wiping us all off the planet. Now, the children of tomorrow must be allowed to express themselves the way they want, to create their future, to live in their world. We have no right to project our misguided perspective and expect the children to embrace it. We shouldn't expect anyone but ourselves to do something. Never expect anything of anyone else but yourself. And to do this projection that we are perceiving and projecting onto the children, well, this is what my grandparents did, this is what my mother and father did, this is what I did, and this is what you're going to do. It has to stop. You see, right now we're conflicting with the children of today because they see the way out and into the world of tomorrow. They understand science and technology are enabling them to have more freedom. Think about this. Now, before I even say this next part, I want you to understand that I do not think education is a bad thing. I think what we are spending the time to educate our children on is useless for many reasons, and there are good things, math, science, and things like that. But what we're doing to our children as far as the way we're educating them is absolutely wrong. I'm not saying we are not supposed to guide and love our children and teach them, but allowing them the freedom to express themselves and explore the world that they see fit is the reason we have our children in the first place. Now, today in our world, I am recording this through my iPhone. On my iPhone, I have more information in a split second than there was books in the Library of Alexandria. I have every single encyclopedia on here, every single math equation I could have solved on here. My phone has more literature, more poetry, more knowledge, more education than any single teacher in the world. And I have access to all of this at the drop of a dime. The children know this, and they understand that most of the things that we're spending time teaching them today is useless. They don't need to learn it. They also need to understand that they do not have to be groomed and molded to be industrial slaves to work for the rest of their lives, because they understand the science and technology will enable them to have that freedom when we finally get the stick out of our ass and embrace full solar power, full wind power, and we are growing and taking the stupid lawns out of our properties and putting gardens out there and providing food for everyone who needs to eat. The children understand that this world is happening for them. But we again, my generation, the generation just beneath me, a little bit of it, and the generation above me, a lot of it, and the generation above that, a lot of it, is trying to hold on desperately to this dying, horrible way. Now, when I tell you that the entire human perspective is off and we have been misguided for centuries, that even our concept of light and love is misguided, the things we embrace and then put impatience and hate on top of it. Then we express hate and impatience and fear and anger and stress and chaos, and then we throw love on top of it. We buy things that we don't need. We support industries that kill. We salute flags that are doing nothing but invading and murdering and polluting and destroying. We honor churches. We honor churches that tell us to hate people for who they love, hate people for the color of their skin, and to hate people for the faith they choose in. And we expect the children of today and tomorrow to embrace these asinine ways. Now, my oldest son is 21. I grew up in the projects in Queens, New York, 1968. Alcoholic father, abusive father, beat my mother. I grew up with a mentally disturbed mother who physically, mentally, sexually abused me. I grew up with a sister who was 5.5 years older than me, who endured all of that, plus had all of that. You know, it was, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, but it was the first child, and it was like all the garbage. It was like all the garbage in my father's life and all the garbage in my mother's life came out, and that was my sister. And then they had me 5.5 years later. And I'm so grateful that I did not end up like them, because as a young child, I saw clearly what was happening around me. So when I had my firstborn son, I said, well, man, let me tell you, he is not going to live a day of my life, and I'm going to make sure that child has everything that I always wanted, and the love and the father and the mother that he always should have, that I should have had, that I wanted. And that's what I'm going to do for Kyle. And I'm going to let Kyle go to school and get a fantastic education and go to college and become someone so successful in the business world, and let him strive and be free and do all these things. Now, nothing wrong with any of that. Even the food, I provided better food for him than I had as a child. But guess what? It was still all wrong. It was still all wrong. My son is about to enter his 4th year of an excellent, amazing college that he's going to. He's always eaten good. He's an amazing soul, and that's the thing. He's an amazing soul. He knows there's a calling inside of him. He is enlightened at his age, years before I gave in to my enlightenment and path. But I misguided him. There were other aspects I should have picked up in him as a child and nurtured those and let him choose and show me his path. And that's what the children of today are trying to do. They're trying to show us the path they want to take. I now have a 2-year-old son, Sagan. And yes, he is named after the astronomer Carl Sagan, the astrophysicist Carl Sagan. That's who my son is named after. Sagan is 2 years old, and now the same mistakes I made with Kyle, I'm going to correct with Sagan. Sagan is going to be a homeschool child, but properly and smartly and done in an amazing way. But the things that we're going to do with him is let him show us what he's interested right even now at this young age. He loves to be outdoors. You think of that, a lot of children want to watch TV and play with blocks and stuff. Sagan is all about being outdoors. I can't touch bugs. I get squeamish and all this. Sagan will walk up to beetles and pick them up and look at all these things. He'll want to pick up snakes and I have to pull them away. He is just embracing nature and his natural environment and his natural path. And as he grows up, I mentioned the technology that's going to free us last episode, all of these things that we shouldn't be embracing now. Automation, letting robotics kick in, stem cell research, let all of these things happen, because if we deny the incorporation of biology and technology, then we are destroying the process of creation itself. I'm going to say that one more time before we move on. If we deny the integration, the incorporation, the merging of biology and technology, we are destroying the path to creation itself. I promise you this. The children of today are smarter than you and I. They are evolution. They are the next phase and next step. They are much smarter than our parents and our grandparents, because you and I are smarter than our parents and our grandparents. They are the enlightened species being born now to guide and show us the way to the future. The children of tomorrow, their thoughts, their ideas, their love, their freedom must be what we embrace and inspire them to become. We cannot deny and misguide the children of tomorrow, because, as I mentioned, that path, there are 2 paths in front of us for our children. One destroys. It keeps on destroying the environment. It keeps on polluting the air. It keeps on polluting the ocean. It keeps on creating more livestock that pollutes the environment and creates more death. It keeps on supporting and condoning the mass slaughtering of species all over the world. It keeps on condoning selling and creating weapons and arms and supplying these all over the world, so there is never peace, and we get deluded with defending our shores, defending our freedoms. That's one path in front of us, and it's a true, honest path, and you can see it right with your very own eyes. And then you know in your heart and in your soul, because your higher self is screaming out for you to embrace the path in front of you of beauty, nurturing life. Don't destroy the environment, not tearing down the forest, not polluting the sky. There are ways now, there are technologies now, and the path is available now to the new light. There is a new day amongst us that gives us a way to the new earth, and that is a new light. And I promise you, every single day I go to sleep and I wake up thinking nothing about this path and this new light. I am living it and coming out here and talking to you about it every single day on Instagram and every single week on this YouTube show, because I am telling you that our government has failed us, our churches are denying us, and we are killing our children and destroying our world because we are absolutely 100% living a misguided path, a path created by somebody else who embraces nothing but the 7 deadly sins as they tell you to avoid the 7 deadly sins. Now go look at the 7 deadly sins and you tell me what you've been doing in your life, who you've been honoring and who you've been worshiping, and what your family has been telling you to do and your friends have been telling you to do, and the contradictions you've been given since childhood that you're still embracing today. And you are taking that confusion and hatred and jealousy and bitterness and rage and anger and trying to embrace love and give this to your children. Our children, all races, all people everywhere. And it must stop and it must end. The children of tomorrow, my son, my sons, your children, your grandchildren, my grandchildren, deserve to have the world that they deserve to have and create. They do not have to live in my world, Donald Trump's world, my grandparents' world, or your world. It's their planet. We must embrace the technology. We must embrace the technology and let it save humanity now, and get these politicians and these ministers, these perverted, diluted, insane ministers who are corrupting churches all over the world. I don't care what faith it is, somebody out there is trying to corrupt it. Embrace this inside you. Embrace that above you. And embrace them we give birth to. I'll see you next week, everyone.